And today, I'm going to be talking about the advantages. Many people might not agree with me, but I personally believe that sexual harassment should be taught in schools, and these are my reasons. Everyone, I have a question to ask you. Have you ever heard of the word sexual harassment before? Yes! Thank you. Since sexual harassment is a well-known topic, I believe that most of the people here are familiar with this topic. But just in case you haven't, I'm going to explain it again. But before starting my speech, please allow me to give a warm greetings to Dr. Niptanat, Deputy School Director, campus managers, honorable judges, management teams, teachers, contestants, participants, parents, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Pheng YouE, a part-time student of level S8A from Teacher Peklei's class on campus. To me, this is such a great opportunity to stand on this big stage, and I feel delighted to see all of you here. Now let's begin. According to Oxford Dictionary, sexual harassment is a behavior characterized by the making of an unwelcome or inappropriate sexual remarks or other physical advances in a workplace or professional or social situation. And of course, if sexual harassment were to be taught in schools, it may have some drawbacks, but there's plenty of advantages that covers it. And today, I'm going to be talking about the advantages. Many people might not agree with me, but I personally believe that sexual harassment should be taught in schools, and these are my reasons. Firstly, because most of you don't know what sexual harassment is. Secondly, most of you don't know about the types of sexual harassment. And thirdly, most of you don't know about the effects and results of the person experiencing sexual harassment. Firstly, I believe that sexual harassment should be taught in schools because most of you don't know what sexual harassment is. It's important for everyone to know what constitutes unacceptable behavior and which acts may be considered threatening or inappropriate. We all need to learn about sexual harassment so that we can create a better place and live in a healthy lifestyle, knowing that we're safe from all these sexual harassers out there, protect our children and future generations so that they won't get scared or threatened by these sexual harassers. And now, you may be wondering, why is this information so important or so useful for everyone to know about sexual harassment? Well, for example, there's this story that I've heard about online. It was about a teenage girl in which one day she was feeling unwell, so she had to leave school early. And there was no other way quicker to home than the alley, so she decided to go into the alley instead. And that is where she met one of her classmates who was trying to sexually harass her and blackmail her into doing something that she feels uncomfortable of doing. But since she didn't know what sexual harassment was at that time, she had a hard time figuring out what the right thing to do in that situation. And this makes her feel depressed because she experienced it almost every day. And later on, she couldn't focus on her schoolwork, so she failed most of her classes. And this makes her want to drop out of school. Ladies and gentlemen, it's situations like this where schools need to start taking actions and start educating students about sexual harassment so that when they become older, they would know what to do in these types of situations. Secondly, I believe that sexual harassment should be taught in schools because most of the time, people don't know about the types of sexual harassment. And as you can see in the picture here, it shows us many examples of sexual harassment. And this is also an important point as well because if we're aware of the types, since awareness is the first type to safety, it's better to be safe than sorry. According to Mike and Wright, there are two types of sexual harassment. The first one, which is quid pro quo harassment. This type of harassment occurs at a workplace when a manager or another authority figure offers or merely hints that they will give something like a raise or promotion in return for the employee's satisfaction with a sexual demand. The second one, which is hostile work environment harassment. This type of workplace harassment can include unwelcome touching, leering, sexually oriented comments or jokes, sexually oriented epithets, and even staring at an employee's body. And now, you may be wondering, how can we use this information in the real world? Well, for instance, there's this story that I've heard. It was about an employee in which one day she was being sexually harassed by her manager into doing something that she doesn't like. But luckily, she knew what type of sexual harassment it was, and she knew how to face it in that situations. And this also gives us another reason on why sexual harassment should be taught in schools. Thirdly, a final reason on why I believe the sexual harassment should be taught in schools is that most of you don't know about the effects and results of the person experiencing sexual harassment. And as you can see in the picture here, it shows us a girl who is being frustrated at work because she had just recently experienced sexual harassment. And she couldn't focus on her work at all. And now you may be wondering, why is this information so important? If you're aware of what will happen when you experience sexual harassment, you will try to learn more about it and try to prevent it from happening to yourself as much as possible. And ladies and gentlemen, victims of sexual harassment can suffer significant psychological effects, including anxiety, depression, headaches, sleep disorders, weight loss or gain, sadness, nervousness, and even more. And now, if we already know what happens to the person who's experienced sexual harassment, what may happen to the person who's trying to sexually harass us? Well, to illustrate this point, there's this movie that I watched a long time ago. It was about a girl who was casually walking in town when she was met face to face with a harasser who was trying to do the same things and sexually harass her like the other victims he did too. And at that time, she knew what sexual harassment was, so she immediately called the authorities and pressed charges against him. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that he was sentenced to over 20 years in prison? Yes, I know, it doesn't sound so great as you may think it is. In conclusions, there may be specific reasons on why sexual harassment aren't being taught in schools, but I personally believe that sexual harassment should be taught in schools, and these are my reasons. Firstly, most of you don't know what sexual harassment is. If you know what sexual harassment is, you can live in peace and security. Secondly, most of you don't know about the types of sexual harassment. If you know about the types, it will really help you to know what the right thing to do when you experience sexual harassment. And thirdly, most of you don't know about the effects and results of the person experiencing sexual harassment. If you know, it could really help you to learn more about sexual harassment and try to prevent it from happening. In my opinion, as we are good citizens, we should not have to be forced to accept sexual harassment as a price of admission to a life and career in the political world. They should not be forced to endure any unwanted touching or any positionings from men or women in positions of power. As one quote from Ali bin Abi Talib said that harassment will continue to exist, not because of many bad people, but because of the silence of the good people. That's all. Thank you.